slant on this, and we'll answer your question completely. Turns out, everything you're offering vibrationally is at the basis of all your attraction. So you could not be more accountable, because you can't get separate from what you're vibrating. In other words, one day, Esther was walking back through the kitchen to her sleeping room and had left her microphone on. And she was chatting with Karen, and everyone in the room was hearing the conversation, or everyone who was listening. And Tracy, who is watching the live stream back in Texas, called Esther's phone and said, "Mom, your phone's on." And Esther pondered what she'd been saying, what she'd been thinking. She was very high and happy. She wasn't worried about it. But then Tracy said, maybe we should always pretend like our microphone is on. And we say, it always is. But monitoring your verbal output isn't enough, because you're radiating your output constantly, and the universe is responding. And that's what we call accountable. In other words, you just can't not do that. Now, we know what you're talking about in a slightly different context. You're saying, if you say you're going to do something, do it. And if you make a commitment to be on time, then be on time and be accountable. But we would like to put a law-based conceptual slant on this by saying to you, if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would be accountable to one thing and one thing only, and that would be our alignment with our source. We would not be trying to please that one or that one or that one or that one, even if it's an employer that is threatening with some sort of power of termination. Because in the long run, if you are always true to who you are, which means you're always choosing the uplifting thought, you're always reaching for the feeling of alignment, that is a form of accountability that will serve you so well that any other form of accountability is irrelevant. And why is that so? Because all through life, you've been saying, don't like that better, don't like that better. The moment someone was rude to you, you put something very opposite of that in your vortex. When someone didn't believe in you, you put something very opposite of that in your vortex. When someone was mean to somebody else, you put something very different than that in your vortex. In other words, you have created a version of life that the source within you is resonating with and holding in vibrational resonance. You can count on that accountability. You can count on the source within you never deviating from that. Here's the thing that's tricky about that, and we're just going to give this to you in the nicest possible way. Never try to get to the bottom of it. Because the more you focus on it, the more you activate it. The more you activate it, the more specific it gets. The more specific it gets, the worse it feels. The worse it feels, the more you are doing the opposite of the accountable to who you are thing that we're talking about. Never try to get to the bottom of things that don't feel good. There's no bottom. There is no bottom. There's no bottom. It's a bottomless pit. There's no bottom. There's no bottom. It will just get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. There's no bottom. Anything that you can do to distract yourself. You see, because here's how it works. Law of attraction says that whatever you're focused upon, more like it will come. And so let's say you're focused upon something you didn't like that another did, or you're focused upon the fact that the other's focused upon something that you did that they didn't like. And it doesn't matter which it is. As you're focused upon this unwanted thing, it's going to get bigger. What saves you is you have to go to sleep sometime. And when you go to sleep, it stops the evil trend. So the more you focus, the more specific it gets. So you've heard us talking, if you've been listening to us for a while, about this emotional scale where feeling really bad is at one end and feeling really good is at the other. And we defined several emotions, and of course there are many more than that, than even the ones that we defined. But we would like to take that emotional scale and put it into a simpler context and say there is specifically negative, which feels really, really bad. And then there's generally negative, which doesn't feel so bad. And then there's generally positive, which doesn't feel so good, but it feels better than so bad. And then there's specifically positive that feels really, really good. Many people, when they are burrowing in, trying to get the bottom of this thing that they really, really don't want, what's happening is you're contributing all kinds of things that you really, really do want to your vortex. When you really, really, really don't want something, there's something that you really, really, really do want that's lighting up over here for you in this place that you currently don't have access to. And there is this bogus thought that many humans have that if I just push hard enough at this thing I don't want, that I will somehow then end up over here to the solution. In other words, if I can just hammer at the problem long enough, the solution will reveal itself to me and we'll have this wonderful outcome. Well, it just doesn't work that way. But this is the way that it does work. If you can get less specific and less specific and less specific, then the vortex will call you closer and closer and closer to the solution that you really want. If you can get generally negative, it's very easy to get generally positive. And from generally positive, it's very easy to get specifically positive. So just think in terms of not wanting to get to the bottom of it, because that gets you more specific and holds you away from the solution that you want longer. So most people, when they're speaking of accountability, they're saying to another, your behavior, and more important, my attention to your behavior, has taken me out of the vortex into a horrible feeling place. And you need to do something different so that I can feel better. Esther said that to Jerry for a few days after he made his transition. She was so mad at him. She was just so mad at him because he was missing. And she just thought that was ridiculous. She just couldn't come to terms with it. And then after a few days of realizing that, what was she really asking him to do? Undo that. Really? We're going to reverse that? And so she realized there must be another way. There must be another way. And we want you all to know that there is always another way, and it's an easy way. It's finally not making somebody else accountable for how you feel. Isn't that the ultimate? Damn it, Jerry, you're dead and I feel bad. Do something about it. Become undead. Well, of course, there is no dead. There is no ending to all that. But it took her a while to remember that and to find it again, you see. And when you think about so many things that happen in relationships where you really are wanting to hold another person accountable for how you feel, you're holding the whole world accountable. The government is ridiculous in the way they behave, and therefore I feel bad. Or the economy is not where I need it to be, and therefore I feel bad. Giving up your power, giving up your power, giving up your power while you're trying to hold someone else accountable. You see, every single time. So when you stop doing that, you're free. You're really free to soar and feel good in the way that is natural for you to do, you see. You're free. You're free to feel good. Well, you get what you think about whether you want it or not. And so when you prepare to prevent something, it's like getting more specific about it. It's like trying to get to the bottom of it. Let me get to the bottom of this. But by doing so, you activate more of a vibration, which makes it more likely that you will have an experience around it. It's complicated when you take situations and want systematic, or we always say that it's never a good idea to take a situation or similar situations and throw one blanket over it and call it the same thing, because everyone is really individually creating. In other words, the subject of physical death is something that is so misunderstood by humans. We were talking earlier, and we really liked the conversation about how can something that feels so wrong actually be right. Esther experienced this in a very strong way as Jerry made his transition, because it felt wrong to her. It felt wrong on every level that she could approach it. It felt like bad timing. It felt inappropriate. It was not what she wanted. It wasn't what she was writing about or thinking about. It wasn't what she wanted. And for a while, the wrongness of it was just sucking the life out of her. And then one day, she stumbled. It felt like stumbling, because it wasn't a thought she went looking for, but it was a thought that in her weariness she was able to find it. And the thought was, what if this isn't wrong, but what if it is right? What if it is only right? And then all of the exhilaration that she'd been missing came back. All of the feelings of clarity that she'd been missing came back. And it's such an interesting thing as humans. You're all here interacting together with so many lists of so many things that you've decided are wrong, that you hold yourself in resistance to all of the things that are right. And the thing that's so really interesting about that is that you wouldn't know the rightness if you didn't know the wrongness. In other words, if you didn't know what you don't prefer, you would not know what you do prefer. It really requires stepping back into a broader perspective in order to understand not just the rightness, but the perfection of this ongoing consciousness that is you. In other words, the opportunities to keep changing perspective, the opportunities to stand in another new place, the opportunities to look from a different vantage point, the opportunity to explore. In other words, that's what you are doing as you come into this physical experience. You are non-physical energy coming to a different vantage point. And when you reemerge into non-physical, it is equally exhilarating to then view it from another vantage point. And the thing that is tripping most physical beings up is that you think that the physical vantage point is where physical beings all come and just think about the physical. We're about to tell you something profound that you will always want to remember. You think that as you come into physical form, that you come with the intention of being physical and thinking about things that are physical. And then you incorrectly assume that when you are non-physical, that you are thinking about non-physical things. Right. When what you are always thinking about, whether you are non-physically focused or physically focused, is what's out here on this physical leading edge of thought. So when you look at it that way, just take Jerry, for example, and this body of work that we are about, or even Esther, as he has been approaching Esther through all of this time. Imagine what it was like for him to be physically focused and involved in all of this, setting up the meetings, getting the meeting rooms the way he liked them, posing the questions, putting it into an environment where it was perfect for you, wanting to make it conducive for you to come and ask whatever question that you wanted. In other words, as people would say, oh, you should do more of this or this or this, Jerry always said every single time, our work, what we want, meaning Esther and Jerry and Abraham, is to provide an opportunity for brilliant people to come forward with the basis of life that they've lived and present their point of view in this leading edge environment to take thought beyond that which it has been before. We trust that law of attraction will gather up those who are ready for that. Our work is not the promotion of it. Our work is the creation of the work, you see. So imagine the fulfillment and satisfaction that he had as he was the beginning asking and essential to the process of that evolution. Now imagine what it must be like for him. We're asking you to contemplate it from a joy level. Imagine what it must be like for him now to shift that point of consciousness and see it from the non-physical point of view. In other words, it was the next logical step for him, but you would have to understand the intensity of his desire in order to get it, you see. Hard thing to understand that anyone would prefer that to this. But the non-physical point of view is really, really good. Sometimes you sort it out, you point it out, you ask for it, and we go right there and wait for you to catch up with your own desire. Such an interesting thing. You pick it, we love it, we go there, we revel in it, we live it, we be it, we are it. And you don't come. Because you're so busy justifying why you're not going there. It's hard. It hurts. I don't like it. Somebody should call somebody. You've been listening to us for a while and you get it, that your emotions are your indicator of how blended you are with that source energy or not. But still, it's easy to let your emotions run away with you. And we want to say that it's not your emotions that are running away with you. It's the specifics of the unwanted. You're supposed to be happy. It's supposed to feel fun. You're supposed to know your power and your wisdom, you see. We're eager to talk to you about anything you want to talk about. We know you have stuff. Do you ever? This is the place where it all began for Jerry and Esther all those years ago.